Hello, I'm Dr. Matthew Aaron. This is the full version of the presentation that I gave at the first annual Unity and Hope Conference for Targeted Individuals in Boston, Massachusetts on October 21st, 2017. My presentation considers electronic harassment, an atrocious crime which can manifest itself as a within-community form of high-tech terrorism. Based on the accounts and testimony of many victims, this type of crime has been in the making over the past few decades, though both the extent of the crime and the sophistication of the underlying technologies seem to have grown dramatically in the past 15 years. My presentation is organized around 4 topics. First, I'll talk about the possible technologies, criminal actors, and motives that may be behind electronic harassment. Second, I'll give an overview of the reported bioeffects of electronic harassment. Then, I'll discuss the untold costs of this type of crime. I'll end by commenting on key issues related to how we might finally start bringing this serious crime under control. Let me start with some background on the technology and crimes. For those of you who are new to this topic, it is important to highlight some key terms at the outset. The essence of being a targeted individual, or TI, is to be singled out for a covert campaign of persecution, intimidation, terror, assault, and even torture within one's local community. Covertness is a unifying element of these campaigns. According to many TIs, the terror campaigns are long-lasting and relentless. They even tend to follow victims when they move to new locations to escape their targeting locally. You might ask yourself, how can a relentless campaign of persecution, intimidation, terror, assault, and torture be carried out covertly in modern democratic countries? The answer lies in the criminal methods employed, which are organized stalking and electronic harassment. By design, these crimes are extremely difficult to document, and they are also difficult for bystanders to witness. I put both terms on the list because organized stalking and electronic harassment are sometimes carried out hand in hand by the same harassment networks. Electronic harassment is the focus of this talk. I'll just say briefly that organized stalking involves a distributed effort by a network of criminals to surveil, track, and stalk a target, to make the presence of a large stalking network known to the target but not to bystanders, and to direct repeated acts of intimidation and harassment at the target, causing 1,000 tiny cuts of cumulative harm, figuratively speaking. Electronic harassment involves the use of energy-emitting devices to inflict discomfort and pain, and sometimes severe physiological effects on targeted individuals. Electronic harassment can be carried out by a single perpetrator, acting alone against his or her target. However, like organized stalking, electronic harassment tends to relentlessly follow a victim, so it also seems to be generally carried out by an organized group of perpetrators who conspire to single out and harm their targeted victim. There is a large degree of consensus in the targeted individual community that electronic harassment is facilitated by 2 types of enabling technologies: directed energy weapons and through-the-wall surveillance technology, which I'll illustrate in the next few slides. Directed energy weapons are devices that emit beams or cones of electromagnetic or sonic energy to destroy, disable, or repel targets. For example, the U.S. military has high-energy solid-state lasers in various stages of deployment or development, like the one mounted on this Apache helicopter. The military also has anti-personnel and perimeter defense weapons that emit lower-frequency electromagnetic radiation in the radio wave band. The best-known weapon of this kind is Raytheon's active denial system, which can be mounted on Humvees or AC-130 gunships, for example. Sonic anti-personnel devices like the LRAD have been used for psychological operations and crowd control. As shown in this slide, the use of directed energy weapons has already started expanding from the military arena into the arenas of domestic security and law enforcement. TIs are generally not alleging that the same directed energy weapons shown here are being used to harass and attack them. But, based on the allegations of thousands and thousands of victims of electronic harassment, analogous directed energy technologies have probably been co-opted by criminals acting outside of uniformed military and uniformed law enforcement circles. Recent examples of electronic harassment in the mainstream media are the so-called sonic attacks that were perpetrated against U.S. and Canadian diplomats and their family members in Cuba. Apparently, energy weapons deployed covertly in or around hotel rooms in Havana were used in some of these assaults. Several victims even suffered hearing loss and traumatic brain injuries as a result of the attacks. In this case, it seems as if a large enough cluster of prominent individuals and their families were harmed that these events could not easily be swept under the rug. Many people in the targeted individual community feel that when State Department officials call these events sonic attacks, it is actually a red herring or smokescreen to divert attention away from the more likely source of these assaults, which is microwaves or lower frequency radio waves. Many of the reported experiences and effects of these assaults in Cuba are very similar to what thousands of targeted individuals have reported in the United States, Canada, and many other countries around the world. Microwaves are also radio waves. They're just high-frequency radio waves. So why should we suspect radio frequency energy as the most likely form of energy used in electronic harassment? First of all, many TIs report that painful energy beams seem to easily penetrate the walls of their homes and other solid objects when they are assaulted. Radio frequency energy is known to penetrate many kinds of solid objects quite well, whereas ultrasonic energy has a more limited ability to propagate first through air, then through a solid object, and then through air again. Many TIs also know that radio frequency shielding materials provide some relief from their ongoing electronic harassment. Household and personal electronic devices are often disrupted during the electronic assaults experienced by TIs. Using EMF meters, tri-field meters, and similar devices, some TIs have documented high radio frequency field strengths or power density readings at the precise times that they also experience painful electronic attacks. To my knowledge, no TI has similarly documented ultrasonic recordings during their electronic harassment. Finally, the suites or syndromes of bioeffects that are reported by TIs are remarkably consistent with known bioeffects of radio frequency energy. This is also true of many of the effects reported by the victims of the energy attacks in Cuba. The term through-the-wall surveillance refers to the use of radar-like devices for imaging objects, including humans, through the walls of homes and other buildings. These devices are also increasingly being used in law enforcement and emergency service applications. Individuals with training in electrical engineering can readily build homemade versions of these devices using off-the-shelf electronic components and sources of ordinary wireless signals like Wi-Fi routers. Through-the-wall surveillance technology is probably an important enabling technology for electronic harassment because this technology would allow criminals to precisely locate and target their victims right through the walls of their homes. Similar enabling technologies for locating and tracking victims of organized stalking and electronic harassment include methods for hacking the location and tracking data of mobile phones, hacking into home security cameras, personal communications, and so forth. Conceivably, a stalking network might even use a Pokemon Go-like app to display a target's real-time location to all available members of the local harassment network. Enabling technologies for electronic harassment probably also include devices that can be used as radio frequency directed energy weapons. One possible source of these devices is technology leakage from the military-industrial complex. There are also many openly available technologies that could potentially be adapted into harmful harassment devices and even weapons. For example, commercially available directional microwave link transmitters, electromagnetic pulse generators, Cherenkov generators, microwave signal generators, and radio frequency energy sources used in medical applications. On the internet, you can even find people showcasing homemade devices that look like firearms, but emit moderately high-power radio frequency pulses or beams. On their website, the group Citizens Against Harmful Technology